the one we had and the one we're starting. So excited to have you with us. This is really a demonstration of us pivoting now to really move the show up a notch. And that really means how do we start doing things by getting better at doing those things and building more confidence. You know, we've done a great job, I believe, building mindset, you know, enhancing attitude, creating support, but that's the foundation to now learning and applying proven everyday opportunities in a way that gets you the results you came here for and probably will never get the way you're going. I'm just being honest, right? So with that said, today's best practices Thursday, and it really refers to LinkedIn best practices. And if you drill down one more layer, it's primarily live streaming. And if you can combine best practices, which most people don't know because we just figured it out yesterday, some things, right? So if someone's on the hunt, they better be thinking every day, what did they learn? And we've got the benefit of all the relationships on the Awesome Journey, on the franchise show, on the Hour of Empower that's given us solid feedback, right? So it's not three people got in a room and they thought it was wonderful stuff. They learned this wonderful stuff from being in a bunch of rooms. And so that's what we want to do today. So to start it out, I would encourage anybody in the audience, first of all, to use chat, but what is it that you want to know or learn about a best practice, right? We'll share some things with you, but we'd rather, again, be more relevant. So if you can hear us, chat. If you want to get a question answered about what's hanging you up on LinkedIn or what opportunity is in front of you, that's the time. With that, I'll turn it over to Kelly. Kelly, she can share a lot in a little bit of time. So what's going on, Kelly, and your first thoughts on best practices?
Yeah, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're tuning in from. Best practices, like this is going to be a fun one for so many reasons. And I on my post this morning, I turned a little digression and a little curveball for people because I think a lot of phrases that we use to describe things, people tend to not relate to them the same way. And I think my question on my post was something to the effect of when you hear the term best practices, does that stifle innovation and creativity because it's kind of one of those things that's in a box that says because this is the way we've always done it, or if we refer to it as guiding principles or something additional, that keeps it open of like these are tried and true practices that we've learned. We've learned it by doing. We haven't learned it by following an instruction sheet because there wasn't one. And so, which is the best way to learn sometimes is just dive in and figure it out and don't be afraid. And we talk about this so often. Don't be afraid to fail because that's how you learn. And so Dawn even saying about, something going wrong yesterday, it's like, yeah, something goes wrong really every day, truthfully. And we continue to learn from it. So yeah, so if you do have any questions, this is the time, especially, and I think the timing is perfect. That December is tomorrow. Like, how the hell did that happen? Like, that's so crazy. But getting these in place for next year, thinking about like, what do I want to do next year? How can I up my game on LinkedIn and do something different with my strategy for my business? Or maybe now I want to go into this area of my own business because I'm struggling in the job market and need to create something on my own. And this is a cool way to try to do something. So yeah, I'm excited about this. This has been a fun thing for the three of us to talk about offline for a multitude of reasons, and then to be able to share them with everyone today. So those are my opening thoughts before we get down into the true meat and potatoes, and then also giving everyone an opportunity to have their questions going and get chat moving. So those are my initial thoughts, Harvey.
Harvey's in a car.
Yes.
I am.
Harvey's brother, Harry.
Well, firstly, apologies, I haven't got my hat on. This is to prove I've got a head underneath my hat. I forgot that, but I am in a car. I'm hoping that the my phone's internet will stabilize and I can still talk the whole way through this. But it's like Don and Kelly have said, we've been having some amazing conversations about best practices for many months, and we all learn off each other. And I'm learning new things each day about what are the best practices. And I think, Kelly, I think you're right. The best practice is to, I think, remain flexible, but with consistency as well. I think they're two things that are good practice to have. You know, LinkedIn and most platforms like consistency. I mean, it's like this show. I mean, Don nailed that right from the beginning. The show is every day at the same time. So you don't have to think about it. You don't have to worry about it. You know where it is and what it is.
Yep.
But the show also, it changes, it flexes and adapts, and it constantly does that. And I think you're getting that consistency, but with flexibility at the same time. I mean, as I say, I learn new things every day. Even yesterday, I got a little tip, which was, and it was quite a simple one, and it was just when you send out connection requests, and if you've got a strategy for sending out connection requests, which is within the market you're looking to be within, which for me is in the franchise market. And I always utilize those connection requests because I create an event and therefore I need to invite first stage connections. But and I get about a 50 to 60% acceptance for those requests. But of course, there are people that still don't accept the connections. Now, when people don't accept them, withdraw that, because LinkedIn will look at a list. If you've got a list of pending connection requests, they consider you to be some sort of spammer, and they will reduce the amount of connections that you can make per week. So connection requests at the moment vary between 1 and 200 that you can have, depending on best practices. So I thought it was a really interesting one, and I thought it was a good one to share.
Well, that's what we're trying to do, is compile a best practice orientation, because I can give you unlimited best tips. You know, I'll tell you one thing: if you invite people to connect and you don't go back and get rid of those invitations after a certain point, you'll get taken off of LinkedIn. And who would know that? You know, only because it happened to me 3.5 years ago, and I didn't know, you know, but, you know, I found out, and I'll never do that again. People don't know that 3 hashtags are the optimum amount of hashtags you should put on anything. You know, even if you Google it and says, what's optimum? Anything over 5 hashtags, you get penalized.
Yeah.
Right? So the people are just putting in 30 thinking they're getting away with something. LinkedIn sees every keystroke, has all your history, knows who you're connected to, knows who you do with what you do. I'm seeing people getting kicked off just by association, you know, and that also should lend itself to who you're working with, that you feel there's value. And the other element is the knowledge share, right? Everybody can learn some every day, but can everybody learn from 3 people's learning every day? And then how do you make that relevant? If you take, you know, and I've read every LinkedIn Audible, I mean, I listened to every LinkedIn Audible, bought every LinkedIn book. There's nothing there. I'll tell you, there's 2 books. It's LinkedIn Riches by this one gentleman, I forget his name. It got me really motivated towards LinkedIn. And there's another one that just came out, that's 60 Days to LinkedIn Success. And every day it gives you one thing to do. And then it gives you reasons. And after a while, you know, you put it all together, it makes sense. And this person has done really well. So the point is how do you take people's time and effort, redirect it in a better way, in an easier way, and a more results-oriented way? Because what everybody can be sure of you get same day results with whatever you do on LinkedIn. You post, it'll tell you how many people commented, how many people liked, who the people were, and at a certain point, fast forward, where you're going to be 90 days from now doing it. And I think what will happen is you'll be doing a lot more planting, which is making connections, a lot more cultivating, which is having a lot more conversations, but no harvest, right? So you're just building these piles of resources and content and everything else. And I think now there's a way to go to harvest by doing LinkedIn right and then adding live streaming to it. Because if I was a brand new person on LinkedIn, I would skip all of the making the connections, all of the commenting, like I just get my own show as fast as I could, right? And what we're seeing here is whoever comes on ends up with their show. So why? And that's by accident almost. It just moves in that direction. Well, what if you can compress the time, start with all the best practices, and the beauty of it, everybody softens the market for everybody else. And if everybody's starting to do really well, they're more inclined to invest more time and resources and support the people who have gotten them there, right? Because once you get somewhere, you want to keep going. And I think that's the key. So my tip of the day, if we're talking about best practices, is your profile, right? That's the most important thing about anything you do on LinkedIn is your profile, because no one goes there unless there's a reason to, right? No one just slips in there, so someone had to hear something, see something, referred something. And most people don't use all the letters. Now, I'm not saying you go to the last one. I'm there because I'll always throw an emoji to make the last one. I think it's 128 characters or something. And the three rules I use is, what are you doing for them? That's the first thing on the headline, which is I help broadcasters get a bigger reach, right? I mean, that's really the first thing, because that's what they're looking for, right? It's not who you are, I'm this, I'm that, so what? What does that mean to me? And there's a billion of you. The second thing after you say, what do you do, is how do you do it? Right? I help broadcasters through a training program. And then the third piece is, what do you get for it? Well, you expand your reach, you get more connections. And so it's all laid out, because if you don't get them on the first line, you don't have to worry about the second line. And you got to get their attention. And I also learned what an impression is. You get how many impressions per post or whatever you do. And impression is being in someone's visible feed for 5 seconds. Doesn't mean they actually read anything. Doesn't mean they do anything, but it is a measure. So anyways, let me go to the comments, and then we'll go right back to Kelly. Leslie's here, can only be here for half an hour. Also helps me stay on track doing weekly shows. Yeah, and everybody's done enough at a certain point. What are you going to do with what you're doing? Where's it going? What's it lending itself? If you can't even monetize it, how many people are you really helping? And that's a key measurement. But then how many people could you continue to help at a more personalized, intensive way? Hi there, Marcello and Carl. Looks like people know Marcello. I kind of missed that part. So let me go back. We've got Carl. Carl's knocked it out of the park yesterday with Matt. It was a great show. And Carl's really on the move, working with us on a collaboration group. Dennis is here. Dennis is here every day, and it wouldn't be the same if he wasn't. Yeah, I got LinkedIn with you three, and I will learn today. Marcello, Carl Dakin, me too. Great to have you, Marcello. Team Live, great. And Paul from Atlanta. So it's good to see you. Leslie says, hi there, Kelly, Harvey, and Donald. And I got to commend Leslie. She's promoting our shows with her weekly bulletin on what's what.
Love it.
And that's important, because whatever you can do for more, do more often. You're not doing that much for others. Let's just say that, relatively speaking, sharing people's posts, commenting on them. So, when you do I think, Leslie, it makes sense to use that time. Might as well use it for 8 shows or 10 shows. And pretty soon what happens, you become known as the bulletin person, right? And all of a sudden that raises your influence, because, enough of those brings a lot of eyeballs. So let's go to Carl. Carl says, what is working best to grow community quickly? Good question. My sense, and we can make this, all 3 of us can have an opinion. I think that when we say grow, a lot of times it's mistaken with size. How do we get bigger instead of how do we get better? With people who are directly relevant. My thought before is, I won't make a connection if I won't have a conversation. So if I connect with somebody and they say, let's talk, I will. And if I'm not willing to do that, I won't connect, because it's never going to go beyond a connection. And I think the key thing is now I look at it, who can I work with if we get to know each other? If there's no way we can work together, and it doesn't have to be a client, it could be a strategic relationship, it could be as a customer, but someone has to have something there, because eventually, and Harvey and Kelly can attest to it, you get more demand than you have supply. I mean, Kelly's booked out, Harvey's booked out, and could book out more if there was more to book for. So the key is demand starts to take over instead of lack of demand, and you have choices. You can choose who is most worthy, who's deserving, who do I learn from or grow with or enjoy their company. Now you're getting benefit. And then ultimately, if whatever you're doing with somebody makes them better than they could have been without you, allows them to achieve goals and exceed them, then they're going to share the wealth because you help them and want to invest in you some more. So I think it's really a confidence level that you make the first investment into people you believe in and want to work with. And I think that serves you better than who pays the most and in that regard, because building is where it's at. So anyways, hopefully quality over quantity, relevance over just audience. With that, Kelly, what's your thoughts on how do you grow a community?
Yeah, and really to expand on that, because one of my goals this year, and it's funny, I was just talking to Jason Wilson last night, and we're going to start doing a podcast together that's focusing on marketing. But we were talking about quality over quantity and meaningful connections, and that's really what I focused on this year. Because it can't, some people still have the vanity numbers and they need to have more followers, but it's like, but how engaging is your community, and how many people can you really reach out to? I look at this year and focusing on meaningful connection and how many connections that I have of people that I can reach out to for help. Or say, hey, I know somebody I want to connect you with. Like, here's, I just did, I think, 10 connections yesterday with people because I know them, and like, hey, you need to know one another. You guys can help. That I feel their synergy, and those things are also happening with me, because it's not just sending a request to connect and accepting it. So you've got another one on your total, but it's about who do you want to follow? Who is your audience? Who does things like you do that you admire? Or you need to comment and pay attention to, or participate, not pay attention, participate on people's posts as well, commenting, following them. When you connect, send a note. I know when I connect, and I'll be and connecting with people are like, hey, I saw your comment on such and such's post. I really would like to connect. Or I saw you on Harvey's show. I loved what you had to say. Would really like to connect. And I tend to follow up with connections with a little, note, hey, we're happy to connect, and maybe a little blurb or mention about the awesome journey. And hey, let me know if there's anything that we can do together, or how I can help you. I think there's just that way of, because one of my biggest things, and I know any of you who do follow me, I cannot, the pitch slap has got to stop people. Like, I cannot stand it. And it seems like, because we're coming up to the end of the year, it feels worse, where people are sending you emails and the immediate connection where it's like 3 paragraphs, and they're talking as if they know what your business is or what you do, and telling you what you need to do to your strategy. And it's like, but you don't even know what I do. You don't know my strategy. So how can you fix it? Is connecting with people on a human level, not just by a numbers level. Know who they are and how you can work for one another. And even if you can't work together, and again, some of the connections that I did just even yesterday, it's because I saw someone else. I'm like, oh my gosh, I know this person, and they would be great to connect to one another. Because you're one connection away of something. And I don't know who says that, but I know it's someone on the show repeats that an awful lot. You're one connection away from something great. Just because we can't maybe work together, I might have someone in my network that would be a perfect connection for you, or vice versa. I don't know. I just think truthfully, there's such a different approach of getting out from behind your profile and really connecting with people and having conversations, Zooms. Don, I know you Zoom all day long, every day, connecting with people. But when it is someone who you think, hey, there may be synergy here, or I'm interested in what they're doing and I want to learn from it. I've done that with people. Hey, I love what you're doing in this space. I would love to have a conversation because I'm going in this direction and I would love to learn more. People I tend to find out are more than happy to help out when you reach out as well. So I think my whole point of all of those words that I've just used is make it meaningful connections of what do you want your community to look like? What does your ideal client look like? And search for those. Go to other, whether it's other lives or audios that have this similar audience of what you're looking for, and connect with those people. I think these are the best way to connect with people are on LinkedIn Lives and audios, because then right away, like-minded people are coming to like-minded shows with the similar topics. So it's just really a matter of and being regimented to that. Like you can't expect LinkedIn to work and not dedicate some time to it consistently. But the more you do it, I think the easier it gets. It can seem daunting in the beginning. But once you get in a groove, like I think, Don, for you, like same thing, people think like, oh my God, you do how many tags and how many newsletters and how many posts? It seems like a lot, but when you get into it and side tip, I do try never to add something to my regiment that I don't have the time for. Don't add things too soon, because inconsistency is the worst thing to do on LinkedIn. Consistency is everything. So until you have the capacity or the resources, however it is in your situation, don't add something. Be good at what you can do for right now and continue to grow it, because it is an investment. It's not something that'll happen overnight, but you've got to be consistent with it. So I think those are my immediate thoughts on the growing community from a high level instead of just like nitty gritty. So I'm tossing it over to you now, Harvey.
Well, Harvey, one thing I want to congratulate Kelly is she just shared enough best practices to make the program just in what she was able to say. And
I know, yeah.
And it is a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Yeah.
And the part of being consistent is being easy on yourself so you could run that marathon. And to Kelly's point, if you add too much or you get overwhelmed, it's going to take the pleasure, the fun, and the joy out of it and make it work. And if you got to wake up to tedious, hard, and the other thing is spacing it out. I do 3 invites a day from inbound. So I look at who watched my profile, who commented, anybody that reached out and did something for me, I'll go through it. Maybe there's 30, 40 every day. My newsletter is getting 25, 30 new subscribers every day, which is interesting. And that's a tactic. But here's the thing. I find time at 6:30 in the morning. I find time at, and everything is paced out. And it's only 15, 20 minutes I do 4 times a day because it's all templated. It's all repurposed. Most people don't give their content enough time. You ever see a wonderful commercial and it plays forever? A Wendy's
Right.
commercial. Or
My only interjection on that with content, and I'm sorry, I can't help myself with this, is because I think people get stuck on the content creation part, is because they're like, oh, what should I put out there? And I think people overthink because they're like, what do people want to hear me say? And they need to stop that. Be authentic. Don't worry about and hey, guess what? Sometimes I think a post that I have is super rad, and I'm like, that one didn't do so well. And then I'll do one like in a matter of 2 minutes, and I'm like, wow, that one took off, and I never expected it to. So just play with it, but don't worry about what do people want to hear me say, or how should I say this. Do it in your voice, and just be authentic with your messaging. So that's my little interjection on that.
We'll get to Harvey eventually, but with that point,
right.
It's really, what do you want to say? Don't worry about what people want to hear or how they want to hear it. Here's an easy example. Go to a restaurant and look at their hours. Come back in a year, it's probably the same hours. Why? Because it's the same hours. If you've got one message, if you've got one thing that you're focused on, that's all you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's all you can talk about. And people think, well, who are they? I never understood who they were. There's a billion people here. And to Kelly's point, it takes one to see something, do something, and change your life. Right? Mm-hmm. Harvey, you've been very
I know,
good.
right?
Thank you.
No, I enjoy listening. I learn just as much. As you can see, it's starting to get dark here, so I may have to try some sort of torch, but as long as you can still just about see me. I wanted to touch on this comment that's up here and just give my thoughts on it as well. I think I agree, first of all, with everything that you guys have said. I wanted to touch on something that Kelly said, which is what I have done as well. So if you're looking to grow a community, find the community that you're looking to grow, because it's very likely that it already exists. And a great place to find it is within events. Mm-hmm. So whatever let's take, who asked the question? Oh, so is it finance? I'm trying to remember now. But anyway, you take your topic. Have a look on LinkedIn events, okay? And there's very likely to already potentially be an event or a course or something that's already made up of an audience that you'd want to, or a community that you want to approach. So all you need to do is attend that event, and you will be able to see the list of attendees. And there you have your community. You need to look at it a little bit, because they won't all be ideal for your community, but it's probably about 60% will be. So you've got a kind of a ready-made, engaged community that you could very easily find. So it's quite a good way of accelerating it. But I think with all of these things, and we get into this, I guess, a little bit more if someone wanted to do something a bit more with us, but it's doing the right things in the right order and doing them consistently. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you something else as well. I mean, all three of us here have got those LinkedIn top voice badges, right? Now, what value they have long-term, we don't know. But a lot of people don't know where those top voice badges come from and how you get asked to do the thing that you'd have to do to get one. And when I looked at my analytics for my account in the weeks leading up to the email that came through, it looked like a heartbeat, right? And it was almost consistently up and then down a little bit, then up. And the peaks were almost all the same. Now, that was because I put a regular post that did very well once a week. And naturally on a Tuesday, I had a peak. But what LinkedIn saw was a consistency over 90 days. That period of time coincided as to when I got the email to contribute towards those collaborative articles. Now, everybody should look at these things, right? They are on LinkedIn. You look them up. They're written by AI, and they invite people to contribute. Now, if you're invited to contribute and you contribute and enough people like it, you'll get one of those top voice badges. I got one in a week. And it's made a difference to building the community. I wanted to build a community around professional franchisors, franchisees. And by having a top franchising voice, it's been said to me by people I wanted to connect to that they saw that and they thought, oh, okay, you know, I accept that connection. So it helped. In my case, it helped build a community. I'm going to share one other thing as well, and it was relatively recent for me. So I created a LinkedIn company page for my show, right? So I created a company page. Number one, that gives you a logo when you put it on the experience, which then shows on your profile. But I don't know whether people know this, but if you have a company page, right, when you do a post, there's an option for SEO enhancement, or so you can do search engine optimization via LinkedIn. They offer it as a service, so that when it's put out to the wider kind of Google search, you have an option to change how it is presented. It can just be a list of keywords, which is going to help promote the show, your profile. I mean, another tip is have a look on a domain name search for your own name, right? Especially if your name's not that common, because it's very likely you can get that name as a .com. Then again, on LinkedIn, you can add a tab that says visit my website. Your website is your own name, so it's really easy to tell people about it. And if they search for you, and then all you need to do on the URL, you don't need a website. You just get it to feed back into LinkedIn, and it becomes one great big circle. But it all then connects you together. You know, if I search my name on Google, it's the first one to come up, and it connects with LinkedIn as well. So it's an interesting thing to do, I think.
Well, you know, I think Harvey and Kelly and myself,
Are you still there? I think the connection might have gone.
Okay, yeah, you're still there. Yeah, I think that every best practice is a little thing you learn along the way. A lot of it is a nuance. A lot of it's a facet of what you're doing. But, you know, little things start to create answers to some puzzles that you may never have known that you were dealing with. And just like doing a jigsaw puzzle, it always takes longer and harder in the beginning, and at the end the pieces kind of fill in for themselves, and it just, you can see where it's coming. You know, that whole see the light at the end of the tunnel. At a certain point you do, if you keep traveling down that tunnel long enough. And I think once you get to that point, you're at such a better position to take advantage of all this, because it's all about scale. I mean, dealing with 1 billion population just on LinkedIn. If you add YouTube and Facebook, if you want to pair your channels, it's bigger than you ever could imagine. And that's why value is going to be the thing that differentiates the players from the also rans. You know, the idea that you can take something and apply it. I'll share a screen, which I don't usually do. But let me see if that's it. Yeah, okay. So let me see if we're sharing, right? Okay, yeah, right here, I have to turn it on.
Okay.
But since I've changed my best practices, learned more and applied more, you can see in 28 days, my impressions went up 48%. And if you want to take it to, oh, I got to do it here. It's not like, get that. Okay. If I switch it to a year, which is totally unbelievable, it changes to 4,500%. And actually 2 days ago, was my best day of a year, and I had a live stream with 35 comments. So what it proves is not only do things work, but it really translates into stop sharing. It translates into LinkedIn's ability to share what you're doing. Because if an impression is seeing something in your feed and not even seeing it, a visible 5-second inclusion in someone's feed that could see it.
Mm-hmm.
You're scrolling, that qualifies. Well, that only comes because LinkedIn has shared that with a broader audience, a more relevant audience. And the other thing about staying honest with who you're dealing with is LinkedIn will assume at the beginning that whoever it is who your target is. So we have 1,000 logo makers in India. They're going to keep sharing it with 1,000 other logo makers. Harvey's back. Harvey never gives up.
No, it doesn't.
Harvey's like the $6 million man. But let me go to comments and then we'll swing it over to Kelly. Okay, Marcello, I think let's go. Oh, Beverly's here. So great to see you. Beverly's doing Tuesdays, and we're thinking out that this week was Women's Empowerment Tuesday. Regina here. Nice to see you again. Leslie says it's a checklist. If you start with a list of proven good, that's exactly right. And that's why I stay on the straight and narrows. I know every time I need to do something every part of the day. It's like just checking on this, getting that ready, putting it out there, getting ready and doing it again. And when you do it by yourself, you have restrictions that actually add discipline, right? Because if you could do more and not have to do anything, you take it, right? And the challenge is maybe you're better off exchanging up for something than just adding more to the something. And that's where you might get some dilution. Dennis comes back with planning and cultivating helps us grow at LinkedIn too. Yeah, it's a process. It's just like nature. I'm hearing it down. I'm getting on to live streaming in my podcast because of you. I'm interviewing Dee Palia in a few minutes. Good luck to you. Share with Leslie. She'll put you on the bulletin board. She's a friend and Europe's answer to Nora Jones. That should be a wonderful.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Seriously, her team promoted this live all over Europe. Go know, and share the link in the post with everybody so people know when it is and where it is. And I think that's part of our spirit is helping everybody help each other as much as we all can, because it is a circle. And things come back and then help each other. And, wouldn't it be great if a year from now, we're all at places we never imagined we could be? And it's only because timing and positioning, right place, right time with the right people. And, it's just a great place to be. Beverly comes back. Yes, Kelly, I do the same. They don't even read your profile.
Yeah, so true.
With a great way to connect, and our neck connects to our brains and flows blood to make our brain active. A meaningful, good meaning. That's a couple layers deep. Carl comes back with Kelly. How do you profile best people to be part of your community? Carl's great with questions today. I think we'll address that next. And Dennis, don't take the fun or pun out of it. Play with it. A rhyme in time still saves 9. That's a good rhyme. Wonderful, insightful conversation. So sorry I have to leave. Well, everything is something. And if you can only do whatever you can do it. Don't wait for the other half. It's practice. If you look at everything you're doing as a learning experience, you're expecting feedback. You're expecting dissonance. You want people to tell you. I mean, I was at lunch yesterday with someone, and, the question to me is be brutally honest. What do you really think about this or that? And, I never get brutally honest because I can get totally honest without being brutal about it. But I think the key is it's just adjustments at time. People are, in time are too absolute, do this and then do that, or skip this and move on to that. And it's better to examine what it is that isn't working, find ways to get those answers, because every answer you get is a competitive advantage over someone who's yet to get that answer or even know to look for that answer. But, if you're building for the future, if 6 months or 9 months, and if you make it interesting, educational, inspiring, and fun, who owes you anything? Where else can you get that at the cost of participation, viewership, and you move at your level? But, what we're going to be doing is allowing people to really get to the top fast by sharing, and not just sharing. Anybody can give somebody a book, and that's all the knowledge they may need. But will they read it? Will they understand it? So I'm saying, if you're working directly with them and they're working in a bigger circle, there's power. And, anyways, Marjana says, my apology, need to go. It's a good thing we started when we did, because half the people are leaving. Hello, all. Good to see you. It's been a while, Elizabeth. Hope everything's doing well.
And she's got to pop out.
What's that?
I said it's.
Oh yeah, I wanted to touch on that. Can I touch on that comment actually?
Which one was?
Yeah.
This one.
No, the one that's up right now from Dennis.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. Dennis and I are in contact via messaging, and I'd absolutely love to help you. We've set up a bit of a 3-way conversation with somebody who was on my show, who's an expert in growth and exit strategies. So
Love it.
Absolutely, we'll get that meeting set up, and I can't wait to do what I can to help you, Dennis. Sounds perfect.
Well, that's great. And
So just wanted to
another
touch on that
power
quickly.
of what we're doing is association, is the ability to refer. I know that it's kind of funny. I was talking to Kelly about a guest coming on, and his name's Greg Martin. He's a major general, and there's
Retired.
Yeah, it's only I looked it up on Google. The Army only allows for 165 major generals. The Navy has their share, so it's a select group. But what's interesting is he reached out and thought this show would be great for the book he's has written, and the exposure. And as soon as I talked to him, I said, well, you got to meet Kelly, and I guess we find out where Kelly already knows Mark. But what's funny thing is we attract the same people with our shows, but are open to sharing everybody.
I was going to say, that's the part about meaningful connections, right? Because even last night, talking with Jason Wilson, who was on the show earlier in the year, and that's how Jason and I met. And we end up saying, I swear LinkedIn is like 6 degrees of separation from Don Cohen. Like everything kind of goes back around. But that is the other beautiful part about meaningful connections, because when we do have certain guests, we're like, man, this would be a great platform for you. Or, hey, if you want more exposure, I know someone else, I'd be happy to do an introduction. Because our shows are so different. So even having the same guest, you're getting different layers, because having Don on The Awesome Journey as an example, and Harvey, it's getting to see them in a totally different light, because they're not being a guest or a host, or they're not being a host on their own show, being a guest and going deep into their own, background stories. It is such a different thing, but it is another cool way to be, because I talk to people and I'll be like, oh man, hey, Don, you need to know this person. Because there's been several people that have been on my show that have been on this show for the same reason. But it was funny, because as soon as he's like, oh, I know this military guy, and he's a major general. And I was like, is it Greg Martin? And he's like, yes, it was. And he's on my show next week, as a matter of fact. His story is incredible. I mean, he is, it's one truly not to miss for so many different reasons. But yeah, so to me, it just goes back to the meaningful connections of people, because we think of each other because we truly know each other. I don't just accept a connection request from someone that's in, X industry, and because they're now in my, my bag, for lack of a better term, I don't think like, oh, I just met this person and this person I connected with the other day, I'm going to connect them. I need to know people in order to do a true introduction. Like, hey, I think this may be a great fit for your show because you're putting your name behind it. And
Mhm.
in that way, when you're recommending someone. Um, and then the same to go on. I have another guy that he's doing a series on mental health. He's doing a TV channel that's completely on that. So a lot of people that are on my show, and he's been on my show also, I will say, hey, I think this is someone you need to have a conversation with. And those are just to me, it makes LinkedIn fun. And yeah, I just think it needs to be more personal. And really now to go back into a little bit of what Carl was asking about, choosing people, I do a lot of what Harvey does in the sense of I go to other shows, I see who's watching, and if people are commenting in certain ways, because when people message me and say, hey, I saw you on, Harvey's show as an example, and I love what you had to say about marketing, would love to connect. Sure, because now you know that there's something in common because you both were doing the same thing, and there's likely like-minded connection somewhere. Um, but I think having conversation is a big part of it, not just accepting the connection request, and understanding that some people are going to want to get into your network that will likely never do anything, and that's okay too. I mean, um, but having a handful of people to be able to reach out to for advice, like that's the other part that's been huge to me this year, is when I'm stuck with something, or now I want to learn more about YouTube, and how, next year I can be focusing on that as part of my personal strategy, is I've gotten to know people over this year through LinkedIn Lives. I mean, LinkedIn Lives has, honest to goodness, changed my life on LinkedIn for so many reasons. Um, but I have people that I know I can reach out to, and they're like, "Sure, let's get a call on the calendar." I mean, nobody says no when you have that connection in the community. Um, and I really just think it all goes back to the whole thing about being consistent and putting in the effort. It doesn't come easy. You actually have to participate and take the time to do it. But when you do, it is like the floodgates open, and it's almost like, whoa, now I got so much coming at me. I'm not sure what to do. But it's and one thing I wanted to go back on, what Harvey was saying about our profiles too, is you can also customize your URL. I don't think a lot of people know that either, because you're given a number, but you can change it so the last part of your LinkedIn URL is actually your name or your business, whatever you want to be. I thought of that earlier. And the other one was about the hashtags in your posts. Because I think a lot of people get confused on this. When you're in, and I think you do have to be in creator mode, if I'm not mistaken, to have 5 hashtags of what you speak about on your profile. You definitely want to have those hashtags in your posts, or at least 1 or 2 of them showing that you do talk about that, for one. But when you have your post, you don't want to have more than 5, and Dawn's right, 3 to 5 max in your actual posts. If you want to have additional hashtags, you can put it in the comments, because it doesn't scan those. But in your actual post, if you have more, because I see people sometimes and they'll have like 30 hashtags in the post, and it's like, oh, you're so being penalized for that, because they do say 5 is max, and additional, they should go in your comments. And same with, tagging people. And I'm sure everybody sees that with Dawn's post in the comments, because they don't scan the comments the same way they do the content in the actual post. So those were a couple of things I just wanted to add on there at the end for clarification.
Well, and there's so much nuance to it, because even tagging, you only get 250 a day. And
Yeah.
that seems like a lot unless you use them. And what you learn from that, when you go over 250, you end up tagged out. And all that means is in 6 hours, you're going to get 250 more. So it's not like suspension or being off. You just use yours, and until a certain time, you'll get more of them. But it's
Can I interject on this? Because I want to be sure that you go in this direction with this. Because I think so many people are confused about tagging and what that means and what best practices are. Because every once in a while, and this has been lately, actually more often than not, I'll see myself tagged on a post of someone, and I'm like, I don't even know who this person is, and I don't know why I'm being tagged here, other than they're trying to get reach off of someone else. Um, but explain, I think, more for people what the purpose is of tagging and what you've done with that, because you shouldn't just go on and all of a sudden tag
No,
200.
you're going to get thrown off, if you do that, So, and you're not going to get any traction with somebody.
That's right.
Bigger makes you better when you have more experience with more people. And the people I tag are tagging people, right? I know they do 100 tags a day too, which also says, the key to tagging is recognizing people, honoring people. I think one person said, please stop tagging me. I got too much going on right now. It wasn't like I got a problem with you doing it. It's just, I can't handle any more unsolicited stuff. And so if people say, wow, you recognize me, because as soon as you tag, which is that italic little symbol, they get notified. That's the difference. So if you're commenting and you don't tag them in the comment, I always start. If it's Kelly, Harvey, because first of all, they're going to get alerted that I just tagged them, and it's not even in a post, it's in a comment, so maybe they see it faster or they don't forget it. And what are you doing it for? Everything has to have a purpose. I equate it to like golf, and I'm not a big golfer, but every club has a reason. Every condition, every situation affects your strategy. And LinkedIn gives you a tool chest. But knowing how to do a newsletter and doing it well, knowing how to do a poll, and pretty soon you go into your tool chest, well, do I want to add a poll to this? If you create an image, you can't do a poll.
That's right.
You get to choose this or that. And so there's a lot of nuance. That's why the thought, after talking for so many months, and we talk about, me, Kelly, and Harvey, best practices, and we always run out of time. New things we learn.
There's so much.
To the earlier point with Kelly, it's a natural when I hear anybody wants to talk about franchising, it's like you need to talk to Harvey. I'm not even the guy, or you need to talk to Kelly, and you need to talk to all of us, because the Awesome Journey is a great place if you're a vet or a first responder or someone who is in the same position, whether you have a position or title or not. And Harvey is great. And it's not because any of us are the word on what we're supporting, but we're supporting it and nobody else is. We're carrying the flag for franchising or for vets or for personal development. And the other thing is, you grow with us as we learn. We share, you learn. As you learn, you get better, make us better, and make everybody around us better. So that's the dynamics of what we're here. And if you're here, eventually you can't be here as a cynic or a doubter, or you won't be here. So what remains is just the core group who know how to get value, but now how to create value in what you're already doing, like Dennis is thinking franchising. Me and Kelly and Harvey are thinking, hey, it'd be great one day to write a book, do a training, do something. And once you get your program, work it. Don't get a bigger program. Don't get a different program. Take that one program and figure out how you can distill it so it can be digested in every way LinkedIn allows. Because what I learned over time, there's people who do polls that don't comment. There's people that read newsletters that don't do polls. There's people that watch live streams. There are people who watch audio event or listen to audio events. So one size doesn't fit all, but your message fits all sizes. And I think that's where people have to get their orientation right. And a lot of times you got to be good enough to be good enough. And it takes time to train. It takes time to develop. It takes time to condition. And you got to allow that time. I mean, how many businesses, if you're lucky, get to cash flow break even after a year or two? They're happy just when there's no more drain, right? Here, there is no drain to begin with, except your time. and how do you want to spend it? So I think if we can, and that's what we're focused on, if we can work on specific situations with specific people and then really intensely integrate it and then work to see how fast can we get you up. You know,
I think Harvey has something I see him over there with his blanket.
in 54 minutes goes so quick. Harvey, hey, prop time.
Uh-oh.
Can you hear us, Harvey?
Oh,
Oh, okay.
oh,
So it's,
you're breaking up a little bit. Can you?
oh yeah,
Can you hear me
I can
still?
see you. I can hear you. So I know you have something to
Oh, that's
tell us.
it. Yes. Yeah, that's it. I wanted to know what the time was. What is the time?
It's
Like,
55
it's almost 10.
minutes, so we're at the final lap here.
No, it's prop time, isn't
Yes,
it? That's what time it is.
Prop time.
Even though I admitted to both of you before this
Yes.
that I forgot my prop today. So you know what? That's okay. I've still got one. And actually I think it's a really apt one. And it's my diary, right? I'm quite old-fashioned in some respects.
Love that.
I keep a real diary, apart from the fact my lovely wife bought it for me and said that I must use it. But you don't need internet connection. There's never any. It's not unstable, the diary. But the reason I'm choosing the diary for today is because it's a way to get things in order, and it's a way you can put things and keep things consistent. You can put things in and you do them each week. And the other point I wanted to make about the diary is it starts at the beginning of the year, no matter what. And when I did the first LinkedIn Live with Don, I wasn't ready. You know, a lot of you know that, you know, I had a Zoom with Don and he said, oh, I'd like to maybe have you on the show. And I thought it would be 3 or 4 weeks and I'd have all this time to plan. He said, no, it's tomorrow. And I was terrified.
Yeah.
And I wasn't ready, but I did it. And in the same way that a diary and a year begins on the 1st of January, when I did my own show, I wasn't ready. But, you know, I learn so much by doing it.
Yes.
And I think sometimes you can never be ready if you just keep on planning and thinking about it. You've just got to
Do it.
get on with it and do it consistently. And you will learn as you go. And with the collaboration group that Don's offering and a show like this, you're getting a huge advantage over other people that would take them months, if not years, to learn it. And also a lot of people will give up when things are really tough or it goes wrong. You know, my biggest fear that no one would be there in the audience. Well, no one was there week 2.
Me.
It didn't matter. Yeah, that was Kelly. Yeah. It was a little issue to do with LinkedIn or some connectivity, but it inspired a different thought process because it inspired the LinkedIn Live being part of a body of work, which was YouTube Shorts and how-to guides and an anthology. And it also made me think about the fact that it wasn't just my worst fear, it was also potentially a guest's fear.
Yes.
That they may, what they're saying may not be relevant or of interest. They might be worried about that. So by just doing it and going for it when I wasn't ready, whatever date that was in the diary, you know, you learn faster. Yeah. And with the support of a group, you can learn even faster than that. So
I love that. I just want to put onto that, which, because it'll all go back to community. Community offers us safety, security, and support, and we're apt to take more risks because same thing. I put a date on a calendar and launched and I wasn't ready. But the reason being is we knew we had community, Don Cohen, and each of us behind each other to help us regardless of where we might fall along the way or trip, whatever you want to use, which I think is just a great lesson for everyone. Like when you have the supportive community, try those things that you were afraid to do, because you can do it. And I wouldn't change how I did any of this, because learning on the fly, but it was because there was support. I knew I had someone to go to or people to talk to and be like, dude, what just happened? Why did this happen? So that's kind of how I want to wrap it. Community is a place, try new things. Think about that for next year. What do you want to do? Try something that scares you a little bit. Know that you've got support behind you and people that you can reach out to and connect with. And then I will do my final ending is go out and shine so bright that others can't help but shine too.
Well, that's lovely. And I think that's a beautiful way of really justifying best practices. My final tip is continue to build trust and goodwill. It's deposits you're making on your future through and by other people. Because at the end of the day, if everybody trusts you and likes you and wants to be more a part of whatever you're involved in, that's where the harvest takes place. Because, if you work with me, Kelly, or Harvey, or all three of us, we're going to be trustworthy. We're going to take your best interest into consideration. We're going to go 110% to make sure we exceed expectation, because, it's on us to help you help yourself, right? And most of the time, I'll share, you could find yourself doing less easier and getting better results, right? Sometimes you need to go into reverse and back out to go forward instead of just keep going in the wrong way. And I think that's important. So I think it all ends up with happiness, satisfaction. If you're happy, satisfied with your direction, your strategy, you're lucky. Stay on it, enjoy it, and maybe share your successes with others. If you're not, you gotta start to review and reflect. So anyways, hopefully this show kicks that off. We're going to see more of these strategic shows, because it's one thing to get people optimized in mindset, but getting someone excited and not giving them a roadmap or a strategy to follow is just, that excitement will last so long.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the one last thing that benefits everybody is a quality, safe audience to begin with, because the hardest part about doing what we're doing is an audience.
Mm-hmm.
If no one shows up, the show's over. You don't need a microphone or a video if you're the only one who's going to see it. So I think the key is if you get to be trusted, referred to now, and when you do get your show, you take a lot of that with you, and that gives you that foundation until you can start adding to it. Because the last thing you want to do is invite two people to your show and they look around, there are only two, right? What kind of show is this? And are we it? Right. So anyways, said a lot, but it just shows there's so much to be said, but there's so much time and opportunity to hear it. And that's where we're at. So thank you. Come back tomorrow if you can. We've got Jeffrey Lackey, and we've got a special guest, first timer, John Spence. And
Nice.
John's a fascinating gentleman. I think he spends 212 days speaking on the road and loves every minute of it. And has just created a course that's just blowing up and changing his life. So come back tomorrow. We'll talk some more. Thank you. Hope everybody learned a little tip here or there they can apply. And you know what? Share that with us if you have. Take one of our strategies or philosophies, directly message us or message everybody through a comment, because it's other people who see other people like themselves succeeding that say, if they can do it, I can do it, and we can do it. Take care.